Hello folks, I don't know what happened with the original stream. I am happy to see you in this new one. Honestly, sometimes I understand why Nikos prefers to do his show live on Zoom instead of Facebook Live. You know, most of the time it works. This time it didn't for some reason. I couldn't just connect to the server with a new stream. It wasn't an issue at all. Absolutely no explanation for that. So just roll with it and be happy that we get to still see each other. You're still seeing me. So with this, I think it's time to start the show as we usually do. So let me say you, hello folks. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. My name is Theodor Vodov, and this is the 24th episode of Keeping It Realistic. As you know by now, in this show, in collaboration with Chaos, we live review up to 7 of the works that have been posted in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last 2 weeks, talking about their strengths, but also pointing out their weaknesses and suggesting eventual ways to improve them. We also like to talk about general topics around the group and the visualization field as a whole. Usually in the beginning of the show, we check some recent news, events, announcements, tutorials, and so on. And all of this is done as a live event so that you can actively participate in the discussion, share your thoughts and opinions, interact with me and each other, or just say hi. With all of this being said, welcome everyone, glad to see you, glad that you were able to join the new stream. Hi Ahmad, Mike, Monique, glad to see you all here. I hope the others find it as well. If not, they have to watch the recording later. Again, no idea what happened in the beginning. I did what I do before every show, every other from the 23 shows so far, and suddenly it didn't work. Yeah, Facebook servers. Anyway, hi Daniel. Anyway, in the beginning of the show, we will do what we always do, and we will take a moment to appreciate today's title image. It's pretty cool. What combines, or what's the common thing among these three images is how much they rely on the contrast between bright and dark. It's really cool. The works were submitted by Navid, Amjed, and Monique. For Monique and Navid, it is the first feature. Amjed has been featured multiple times already, so congrats to all of you. Now I'm back. I will just remove this one, and you have to bear with me a bit in the group because I had prepared all the windows previously, and now that I had restarted my machine and everything to figure out what the issue is, everything will be screwed up, but we'll figure it out along the show. Okay, let's start with some news and events. First of all, our longtime former group head, Emanuela M, celebrates her birthday today. So all the best to her. We miss you, M. Come say hi. We're always happy to see you in the group. Second, when we talk about celebrations, you see random people is sharing this St. Patrick's Day leprechaun mascot post figures that you can download for free and keep forever. I don't know what you can use them for. You can of course make some pretty cool fantasy scene, or maybe talking about more like everyday context of our work. You can use them if you're working on something like a theater stage, for example, or let's say you have a public square and you need some type of a street performer. You can use this, or if you don't want it, just don't use it, right? Other than that, this week, March 21st, it's this Thursday, we have the Arvis workshop with creative lighting with Nikos Nikolopoulos in the early afternoon, and later that day we have the Chaos Unboxed event in Berlin. It's an on-site event. I'll be there. If some of you are also there, I'll be more than happy to meet you in person. Generally, I'm very excited about this, not only about the contents of those two events, but also about meeting people that I've known for a long time, but just online, people like Nikos, Artur, Bartosz, the other 3D artists, the Chaos folks, and I'm also quite excited to see how the Berlin render or visualization community is like. There will be no recording from this event. Unfortunately, it's an exclusive on-site event, so you gotta either be there or you won't be able to see it. And I mean, I know that most of you watching today unfortunately won't be there, because I, who lives in Germany, pretty much in the middle of Germany, after this trip will have to immediately pack my stuff, because tomorrow I gotta get up really early to catch my train, and it will be a 6-7 hour right there. So yeah, it's pretty far. So if you live in a different country or on a different continent, it will probably be a big struggle for you to be there. So I don't expect to see many of you there, but I will probably take some photos, make some videos before or after the event. Those of you with whom I'm friends with on Facebook may see some of the images on my Facebook story maybe, and for the others, on the next episode of Keeping It Realistic, I hope it will run immediately. On it, I will just share with you my insights, my thoughts on the event, on the people I met there and everything. As you know, I'm usually very upfront and honest about this. You know, we had this one event with Chaos where, you know, I was a bit underwhelmed by it, the Chaos Unboxed online event, the first one, and I was honest with you about it. I was also upfront with it with Chaos as well. So if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I'll also tell you. And yeah, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think it would be great. It's very promising. Let me check the comments. I see Amjed Ali joined us. Mike says, I would just add to a bedroom for my clients and refuse to elaborate. You would just add it to a bedroom for your clients and refuse to elaborate. What? Oh, yeah, you know, the mascot here. Yeah, this would be pretty cool. I can imagine this being pretty cool. Why not? You got to stick out of, you know, older people, right? Daniel says, fly there. And yeah, also, last week, yeah, obviously here I had prepared this event. I wanted to show this to you, but yeah, now we have to scroll down to it. So yeah, last week the Chaos Campus Live show was a pretty cool event with some really nice dudes hanging out together, talking about this group and about the future projects, community-oriented projects by Chaos. And to be honest, Chaos has some really nice on-site initiatives going, created by Chaos themselves and Claudio in particular. I think there is one in South Africa, in India, in Japan. Especially regarding this group, I know that we have a lot of people in and around India, so this one will probably be interesting for you, so keep an eye open on it. As for the shows in this group, obviously the Chaos Campus Live show with Nikos, it's been going strong for 3 years now, if I'm not mistaken. It has lots of episodes. Nikos has introduced us to so many great, skilled, talented people, single artists or big studios. And I'm looking forward to his next guests. Then, of course, the Keeping It Realistic show. I made a small presentation describing how important feedback actually is, showcasing the examples of Georgi, Seraphim and Takur, who managed to improve so much just within a short span of time because of the feedback they have gotten from the show. And I also even mentioned some of your names. Some of you were there. I know Amit was there, and I think Mario I also saw in the comments briefly. So you probably heard your names. As for the others, if you want to check it out, watch the recording. You may hear your name. Obviously, I wasn't able to call all of your names, but at least as a sign of some appreciation for your contributions to this group, for you being active, providing feedback, or making tutorials for it, I wanted to at least briefly mention some of your names, and it was really awesome. Next, who we have is Ricardo Eloy from CG Architect. You know this place is an Arvis artist. This is, as it says here, the heart of Arvis. So also he shared a pretty cool short video. It's just CG Architect news in the group. You can check it out. It's only 3 minutes, but it gives you a bit of a recap on what happened in the ArchViz industry in recent times, and on CG Architect as well, of course. So, the CG Architect podcast is coming to the group. We talked about it somewhere in the end of January. The first podcast was supposed to come to the group in the end of February, but as usual with big companies, it took longer because, everybody has to have their say on this final project. So it takes longer, but I think it's just a matter of weeks until we see or hear the first podcast with Ricardo and his guest. Who we don't see here is Pedro Moreira from the In-Betweeners. He had locked himself out. This is him, what you see in the corner here. So he wasn't able to connect for the longest time, and then he didn't have any video, but still he was able to tell us something about his future show. If you don't know the In-Betweeners, it's this visualization festival in Portugal. It's really great. I've heard only good feedback from everybody who has been there. It's been going for some years already. And yeah, he will have a show, feedback show, a portfolio preview or review show, if I'm not mistaken, with a guest. I don't know when it will start, but I'm sure that once it's close to this point, he will share all the needed info with us so that you know how to submit your portfolio and things like this. And last but certainly not least, we have Mike, who is also in the comments right now with us. Mike from Viz Academy. I won't pronounce your full name, dear Mike, because Polish names are just torture. Sorry for that. But Mike will start the Viz Academy show, if I'm not mistaken, this Thursday. I wanted to talk you today through the process of setting up the live stream. So the beginning of today's show probably wasn't the best example, but normally it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You have to deal with it. But as you saw, we managed to find a quick solution, and now we're together here. So I think it will work, and we will do it after the show. Anyway, the first Viz Academy show will start this Thursday, I think at the same time as all the other shows start. So it will be at 4 p.m. Central European time. And from Viz Academy, you can learn a lot about modeling, texturing, lighting, the whole process actually. It's mostly about Max and Corona. Topic will be exterior modeling. I think it's from zero to hero. So probably Viz Academy will walk you through the whole process of creating a scene from scratch till the final project, which is awesome. Mike shared something in the comments, as I can see, so take a look at it. And yeah, definitely, if you can be in Berlin and watch the live event, then be in the group and watch the Viz Academy show. I can absolutely vouch for Viz Academy because I myself am a former student of Viz Academy. I really liked it there. The moment I decided I don't want to be a Rhino and V-Ray user anymore, I want to change the software that I'm using, I invested in the Viz Academy course. I think you can even see my feedback here somewhere. If we scroll down, yeah, this is an old photo of mine with the long dreads. So yeah, all of those images I created within the course, and I was very thankful. Never did I regret it for a single day, because I really learned a lot. Mike is a very capable artist, and you'll be able to learn a lot from him, and I will also be watching. I hope that there will be recordings. There surely will be. So this week I won't be able to attend this, but in future I will surely make sure to be there and also watch, because you can always learn something new from Mike. I see Amit says tech glitches are fine. 3ds Max is at its best when an online show is going on. Daniel says, hi Mike, nice to meet you. Like your YouTube channel. Yeah, you probably know the Viz Academy YouTube channel. Mike says, nice to meet you too. Thank you, appreciate it. Amit, I too changed from V-Ray to Corona after watching Mike's video on Render Camp. Yeah, so you know Mike, I don't need to introduce him anymore. But yeah, I'm very much looking and generally talking about all the shows coming to this group. I think that it would enrich the group totally. And it's not only the content of those shows, but it's also the people who host them. These are all very seasoned, very skilled artists that have been in the industry for a long time. So it's just generally great to have them around. And also, I really know of no other group which has 5 dedicated shows for it, all of them for free, without product placement and stuff like this. It is just awesome. I see a bright future in front of this group, to be very honest. Now, enough of this. Now let's talk a bit about learning. So first, I wanted to introduce those of you who don't know Chaos TV, because I know some of you regularly visit it and follow the videos there. This is a great source of knowledge, also a very lively one. As you can see, within the last 2 weeks, 8 videos have been posted, with all of them with different topics, with different render engines, if it's Enscape or V-Ray. And also the source software, so if it is like 3ds Max, SketchUp, Rhino, you can find a lot of useful and interesting stuff here. Also just sometimes just very interesting tutorials like this stylized isometric kitchen that I will definitely be watching on my trip to Berlin, to be honest. And yeah, then let's continue with Konstantinos. Konstantinos has been very active. Konstantinos from Mesh Mastery, sharing this small, let me close all of those windows that pop up here, sharing these small, very quick tutorials in the group. One of them has been how to see the poly count of your objects if you have a heavy scene. This is a very useful one. How to properly use Swift Loop following your object's form. This is great. This is my mom wishing me all the best as the stream goes. Then we have Konstantinos showing us how to quickly apply a texture. With this basketball, it obviously works very fine by just acquiring from the reference plane. On a more complex object, it won't work this fine, but it doesn't matter. It's still a very nice tip. And then there is how to make a proper hole in 3ds Max. This is important if you plan to work further with this geometry and need some really good clean geometry. This is how you do it. Also, Konstantinos shared this tutorial. It's a beginner's guide on how to make, there was a title here somewhere. Anyway, it's a series of 3 videos that teach you how to make a cup from scratch. So it's the cup in the first video and then the handle and the saucer in the other 2. It's really for very, very beginners, but nevertheless pretty nice. What's very interesting, however, I hope this one is still open, and of course it's not, so I will have to go down and search for it. Sorry for that, but things like this happen. Anyway, Konstantinos has this survey going because he wants to make a webinar soon. And in this webinar, he wants to, I don't know where this survey is, to be honest. He is asking us what we want him to show us. And there are pretty cool topics, to be honest. But yeah, obviously I cannot find it now so quickly. Sorry for that. So yeah, search for this survey by Konstantinos and try to fill it out so that when he does his webinar, he shows us something that we actually really want to see. Now, next, let me present you the second part of this tutorial by Chihan. It's a YouTube tutorial. The first part we presented on our previous episode of Keeping It Realistic. In the end, what's being presented there is this scene that you do from scratch. There is a lot of really good modeling and texturing shown in those videos. The tutorial itself is in Turkish, but you can always enable the automatic subtitles in English so that you can follow along, and I totally recommend it. Next we have Abdi's tutorial on physics-based particle simulation. You know this series, Tyflow for ArcViz. It's a whole series which Abdi, you may know him as AS Art 3D and Motion Graphics, started more or less for us in the group, showing us how to use Tyflow for ArcViz. In the first video, he showed where to get TyFlow from, how to install it, and how it generally works. In the second one here, he shows this physics-based particle simulation, and it's actually pretty great, to be honest, because what he does here, like the actual knowledge, the new stuff, so to speak, is, let's say, the first 10 minutes. For the rest of the 35 minutes, he just shows a lot of examples with some different changes here and there. But let's say if you don't have so much time to watch the whole 45 minutes, even though I definitely recommend this, then just watch the first 10 minutes or so that you know how to do these particle simulations. Nevertheless, what he shows here is he takes assets from the Chaos Cosmos library and then he alters them to give them a unique new look. And this is actually something very interesting and very useful, because let's say when we talk about fruit bowls, we have a lot of choice in the Cosmos library. It's awesome when we talk about this topic because there are lots and lots of fruit bowls here. However, when we talk about, let's say, a basket with bread in it, with bread buns, then we have only this one. And now you must imagine that every artist who has a Chaos project and has the Chaos Cosmos coming with it will have access to this one basket with buns. So at some point, pretty quickly, this asset will be pretty overused. However, if we scroll down a bit, you will find out that there are other buns that look even better than the ones in the ready-made basket. There is a different basket even. So what is needed is just the knowledge how to put those things together. And the thing is, of course, this can be manually done, but it takes time, more time than if you do it with TyFlow. And the second thing is, you won't be able to make it look so authentic as it is with TyFlow, because there it is an actual physics simulation. So the way all those breads get into this basket or this pot will be way more natural. So of course then we have it also on Polygon. There are great scanned fruit and vegetables there that you can also use to fill in some pots or bowls or whatever. Same with Megascans. I would say just take a look at the pretzels here, the bread rolls, all of these things, the buns and the bowls that you have here. You can just use both, combine them, and then you have your unique, your own assets that nobody else will have looking like this. And I think this is quite important for artists. Also, in the meantime, Abdi shared the third part of this, which is about ivy growth with TyFlow. And I don't know about you, for the last 12 years, as somebody who has mainly done exteriors, I have had many situations where I had to fiddle around with some ready-made ivy model, trying to fit it to the facade of my building. And honestly, I won't be doing this anymore after seeing this. This is so flexible, this is so quick, there are so many options about the size of the leaves, the thickness of the branches, all of this. This is just so awesome. I will never be using ivy assets again. I will only use this in future. So again, I very much recommend it. And Abdi also shared a link to a certain, he calls it a tutorial playlist, these 12 tutorials that you can watch. Most of them are something pretty connected to ArcViz. Just take a look at them, see what part of this is useful to you, how can you implement it to make your workflow easier, more flexible, and of course, more capable. And last but certainly not least, this was supposed to be a link, which of course it isn't. But yeah, the guys over at The Common Point shared their next masterclass lesson. This time, let me find it. This time it's about volumetrics. And volumetrics are very essential in visualization when it comes to, yeah, here you see it, when it comes to photorealism, but also when it comes to creating atmosphere. So this is a must, this lesson, definitely go watch it. And generally, thanks to everyone, Konstantinos, Cihan, Abdi, Artur and Bartosz, for creating those great lessons, sharing your knowledge, and then sharing it here with us in this group for free. It's awesome, and it's really greatly appreciated. Next, let me just, before we dive into the projects, let me just remind you about the current exercise that we have going. We don't have a challenge in the moment. Instead, we have this small task about photography that you can participate in. There is no deadline, no competition, no prizes or whatsoever. It's not official. It's just an idea of mine. You see me here talk about it. The topic is make a photo shoot of your workplace. You're there every day anyway. You don't need any special equipment for this. You can just take out your phone out of your pocket and just make a few shots that capture the essence, the beauty, the atmosphere of your workplace, then put them together to a collage like I did here, something like this. These are examples of mine. This is the studio that you see, or the workplace that you see behind me. Here is another example by Nico, one by Danushka, one by Takur. So yeah, it's up to you how you do it. It's just about this topic of when in the beginning of our work, we model stuff, then we texture it, and in the final phase, we are virtual photographers. And it's always great if we exercise being a photographers in real life, because this is knowledge that you can very quickly implement. Because when you try to take those photos, it doesn't matter if it's like the whole workplace or if it's like close-ups as you see here, you will be confronted with different topics such as composition, lighting, and so on. And while doing so, you have to find a solution. And this solution is something that stays with you. This is experience. And this experience, then again, you can very quickly implement on the next project you'll be working on. So I think it really pays off for me, even though I've been doing it for so many years. This was an actually challenging, and it was fun to make. It doesn't take more than an hour. So I really recommend participating. It's not about how great your workplace looks like. It's just about exercising photography. That's it. And with this being said, it's time to take a look at some actual projects. Now, in the beginning of the show, I said we take a look at up to 7 projects. This number is there, or this limit is there, so that we don't have the show be way too long, like more than 2 hours. We try to keep it around 1.5, 2 hours. And this time we'll be talking about the works by Amjed, Hamza, Ali, Monique, Seper, and Navid. Now, obviously, if you don't see your name here, but you have submitted a work, you can, of course, skip the rest of the show. And of course, if you see your name, you can also skip it. There's no obligation to watch. However, just talking in general, similar to a tutorial that you're watching. Let's say you have an interior to work with and you're curious about how to do your lighting. You'll probably look for a tutorial on YouTube, and then some artists will be showing how they are doing the lighting on a random living room, for example. But this living room won't be your living room. It will be a random one. It will be their living room. And when it comes to doing your own living room, you have to adapt the knowledge that you have taken from this tutorial and use it on your own project. And actually, same thing goes to these projects that we review here. It might not be your project, but the stuff that we talk about is mostly generally true, and it applies to more than just this specific project. So if there is something that we compliment, something that the artist did in a great way, this is something that you might remember, and next time when you're confronted with a similar situation, you can maybe do something similar, knowing that it usually results in something good. On the contrary, if there is something that we point out as a weakness on an artist's work, next time you maybe are tempted to do something similar, you will know not to do it, because you know that it will probably be a mistake. So you can still profit from this, even though it's not your work that we're talking about, because works generally, archivist works especially, aren't as unique as we want them to be. That's like a living room or a bedroom or whatever. Mostly the same general rules apply to all of them, and we talk a lot about those rules, so gladly stick it with us and let us take a look at some projects. I see Mario joined us. Hi man, glad to have you. Let's jump in Amjed's project. It's been a while. Amjed is one of those group members who are creating a lot of images. Like every week there is a new project by him, but of course I try to talk about different artists and different works on every show so that we don't have the same bunch of people that we always talk about. So for the last few shows I skipped his works, but this time I found this one to be actually quite interesting, so I'll gladly talk about it. Let's see what he has to say about it. Peace be upon you, my design for a bedroom in Yemen. I hope you like it. The programs used: Revit, Blender, Psychos and Photoshop. Generally a good description, Amjed. We know the software info, we know that it is your design and obviously your visualization. As always, you can, of course, you're all more than invited to share more info about the project. Why did you go with this design? Was there something challenging to you throughout the whole process of creating those images, and so on? As for the images themselves and their presentation here on Facebook, I would say I like the varied angles, I like the visual consistency, so it's pretty good presentation in my opinion. Now let's take a look at the images and inspect them closer. General impression on my side, it looks like a really solid work. It shows that the images show me that you really cared while creating or working on this project, and that you actually did put some real effort into conceptualizing the space and actually capturing it afterwards. And this is great, of course. Now, design-wise, maybe we can stay at this image for this. This interior has a pretty cool, bold style to it. A lot of the concept here builds upon contrast between bright and dark elements. We see this throughout the whole project, and it's pretty cool actually. Typically for you, it's quite eclectic. Like if we take a look at the pendant lamp, for example, the bed, the sofa here, they're more on the modern Scandinavian minimalist side. Then we have the ceiling, which to me is more of a Japandi style, maybe. The table lamps, they have something out of a country style. And if we take a look at, let's say, this one, for example, the makeup table, it's more on the classic side. So it definitely is a mix, not for everybody. Some will like it, others won't, but that's okay. The color palette, I think, is the thing which manages to nicely fit everything together, maybe with the exception of the material on the bed frame, because first of all, while all the other materials have this reddish tint to them, you see it on the floor, on the sofa, on the fabrics, this wood here is more on the yellowish side, and also it looks kind of this cheap IKEA veneer, which, I don't know, it kind of doesn't suit the rest that much. Now let's talk about functionality, because you could have concepted this interior, and I think this is then a very important point. What we see here is a bit of an issue immediately on this shot. The passage between the bed and the sofa is quite narrow, which is very inconvenient because you have quite a big bedroom, but then you have this narrow passage in it where you have to go sideways to come through it. And given how large this sofa is, I would just suggest you to make it smaller, maybe so that it doesn't touch the carpet, it's just somewhere in this area, and then I think it would be good enough. Now, regarding the makeup table, not sure in which direction I have to go. This was probably the wrong one. The makeup table, you see it on this shot, and this one especially, it has no leg room. So if somebody uses it as a makeup table, it will be very, very uncomfortable. What you have here is something like a sideboard, more or less. So either remove this chair, maybe you can put some small poof there as an invitation for somebody to quickly sit in front of it, but remove it, because otherwise the way it is now, you cannot even open the drawers with the chair being there. You have to stand up every time, move back the chair and open a drawer. This is very inconvenient. Now the next topic is the headboard of the bed. I was really unsure if this is some type of optical illusion, but actually this headboard here seems to actually be tilted, which again I think is very inconvenient, because you cannot put something like a glass of water or a bottle of water or stuff which is a bit higher, a vase or something, you cannot put it there because it will fall down and slip. And I think this is the reason why you had to put those additional nightstands on both sides of the bed. And I think that this is a waste of space and resources, because you already have this huge headboard in the back where you can put books and all tons of stuff, and instead you still need those two nightstands on both sides. So maybe you just need to make this like not tilted and then remove the tables and put everything back there. This is just my opinion. And about this oriental lamp that you have in the upper left corner, obviously it's Yemen, something like this. When it comes to the geographics, it belongs there, but among all the other elements of this interior, I think it looks kind of out of place, in my opinion. Now let's talk about modeling. The modeling to me generally looks pretty fine. There is a good amount of detail to it. You haven't been very precise when it comes to the alignment of those lamps, for example, or if you take a look at the curtain rail, it's not parallel to the windows, so you definitely need to fix those things. Material-wise, the materials are mostly quite nice. As Amit pointed out in his review, the ceiling, we'll go back to this shot in a while, but let's take a look at the ceiling shot. I think if we zoom in here, you will see the bump map is quite strong on the ceiling material, and also the texture is definitely overscaled. You need to scale it back down for it to look more authentic. And when you have close-ups, like if we take a look at this wall, it looks nice the way it is now from this distance. But once we zoom in on this close-up, you see that, especially when it comes to the door texture, it's definitely low resolution. It's not enough for a close-up. You need better textures there. Now, talking about framing, I would say we can go through the shots one by one, take a look at them, starting by the first one, which I think is a really cool shot. You place the camera in the closet and then made something like a natural framing with the closet doors being slightly open to, let's say, thematize the privacy of this room, which I think very nicely fits something like a bedroom. Only thing I can suggest here is to maybe add some chamfer here on the edges and then some depth of field on these doors here so that the focus clearly lies on the bed. Let's move on to the second shot, which is this makeup table close-up. And I like the composition here. I like the blurriness in the back as well. What I'm not sure about is I think that the depth of field is quite strong in this case, and that the camera target isn't properly placed. I think that the focus shouldn't be on the word or the drawer handles, but more on what's happening atop of this sideboard, or let's call it makeup table. So more here rather than here. So you need to move your camera target back a bit further away from the camera. Next, we have this view from the bed towards the closet, and honestly, that's an okay shot. I think what makes it nice, it could have been a very dull one if this door was closed here, but you open the door and you did let a lot of strong light come through it, which actually adds some dynamic to the shot, some interesting shadows and light interplay here in this area, and makes for actually a nice shot. I think that still you can crop it a bit. You can do maybe something like this, because in this case the carpet doesn't really add much information to the shot. The sofa is still visible, and I think that a framing like this would generally look better in this case. Next, we have the angled view, which is pretty cool. If you want to cover this empty area in the foreground, what you can do is pull the camera a bit back to the makeup table and chair and have one of those two objects be blurred out with depth of field in the foreground and cover up this area. Next, we have this shot. This is the wall view, let's call it. It's a very subjective shot. Some people will find it pointless and won't like it. I personally dig it. There is something cool to it. The only thing that I'm missing is like the bed being visible down here. Maybe you removed it for this shot, But other than that, I really like it. I think it has it's a nice architectural shot. Then we have the frontal view. It's very similar to the shot from the closet, so not really a point to talk about it much. Then we have this door lock detail, and even though it's a nicely framed shot, a lot of people will consider it pretty pointless. And because what are we supposed to look at? It's not really like the most beautiful details of this project, right? However, if this could be an interesting or even an important shot, if the topics represented here, something like door handle or the light switch, the specific design of them are important to your client, then a shot like this could actually be pretty cool. However, what we talked about in the beginning, talking about materials, you then need better, more high quality, high resolution materials for that. Next, we have those night table lamps. We have some good contrast here, but there is something, I think this is something about the depth of field in Psychos Blender, which makes such close-ups kind of look fake. I cannot put my finger exactly on it why, but there is something over the top, something that makes it look fake. So maybe you need to watch a tutorial or two there how to properly make it, because it's not quite right. And we're back at the first shot, and I think it's one really good work. Just pay more attention to the quality of your textures when it comes to close-ups. And when you do conceptual work, like interior design, for example, always think about the practical, everyday life side of your concepts. It's about functionality, it's about convenience. Before something looks pretty, it has to be functional so that people who actually use it on a daily basis feel right in it, in my opinion. I see Susie joined us. Abdi, hello folks, glad to have you here. We are at the second project that we'll be talking about today. This one will be interesting for sure. It's a work submitted by Hamza. He writes, design of a fountain in Algeria, done in 3ds Max and V-Ray 6. Okay, nice description. It's definitely informative. What you can add in future as an information is the type of project. Is it a commercial work or a personal exercise of yours? And gladly tell us a bit more. Did you design those fountains, or were you only tasked with visualizing them? Now let's take a closer look and see the general impression of those projects. To me, it looks like, I don't know, fountain area of a big park or something, with those koi ponds and some landscape design done around it. Now, the images themselves, I went through them a lot of times. They aren't very believable and realistic. And I think that the main reason for this is their exposure, their saturation. But we will talk about this more in general. Let's start, as we usually start, with the modeling. Mike says, Theo introduced your YouTube channel, some good... Oh, you're talking to Abdi. Okay. So, modeling. Modeling-wise, actually, I don't have much to say. The modeling seems quite fine to me, and when it comes to the scattering, it actually gets even better. Scattering is really good because you had a lot of stuff to scatter. So you had all those stones, the plants that are following the geometry here, the fish, the grass, the gravel, those wooden pickets, and with all of those scattering, I see no visible repetitions, which is always great. Maybe you can add some fallen leaves here and there. I know it's Algeria, it's mostly palm leaves and stuff like that. Also, it's quite warm and so on, but still, even in the cleanest areas, we still have some dirt here and there, some small debris or, fallen leaves. So yeah, consider it always adds a bit of authenticity to your scene. Now, asset-wise, I think that the plants that you have chosen to scatter look pretty good. But the stones, let's get back to the first shot. I don't like the stones here, to be honest. They resemble some assets from a computer game from the early to mid 2000s, and they take away a lot of realism, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about materials, and this will be a bit of a difficult topic. First, where we may start with the good parts, which is that the major color scheme is pretty good, in my opinion. We have red and green, which are complementary colors, and the combination of those two always works. By the way, folks, let me show you something, because again, we try to be a bit more general, even though we talk about specific works. Let me show you colors. Just for those of you who are new to the show, this is not product placement, this is not a paid advertisement or something. We don't do this here. This is just stuff that I myself use or like or have heard about, that I occasionally decide to share with you. I will share the link for this in the comments of the show so that you can follow it. What you have here is either ready-made color palettes. We can take a look at them here. You see how many there are, with many colors or with less ones. There are great, really beautiful palettes. You see from 2 colors up to, I don't know, 10 or something. Really cool. And you can also see trending colors, and there is also a generator where you can create your own palettes, see nuances of different colors and so on. It's pretty amazing. There is a pro version. I've never used it. I've always, the free version has always been enough for me, and I think it's really, really awesome. So if you struggle with color palette or with the color schemes of your projects, gladly check this out. I'm sure you will be able to find some inspiration here. Oh, Ahmad shared another site, the Adobe site. This is the other one. Let me open it. This opened, of course, somewhere else. This is this one. I have used this one as well. Yeah, this is also great. Here you can see the types of colors. Here on the side you can say monochromatic or complementary and stuff like this. It is awesome. Thanks for sharing this, Ahmad. And now we go back here to Hamza's project. So the major color scheme is okay, but there is a lot in terms of materials that can be improved. Let's start with the falling water. I think I could go to this shot, for example. So you see it in the moment, especially on the big waterfall, let's go it like this, it is kind of too transparent. If you take a look at the small one, it's actually nicely visible, even though it looks a bit frozen, but it's okay. But here, this one looks more like a glitch in this texture rather than a visible waterfall. So a solution for this is just to play around with the refraction values until you make the water here look a bit more milky. This is very typical for photos of falling water, so it will still look quite authentic in my opinion. Second thing is that there is no wetness. So the materials surrounding the water don't react to it in any way. You see how there is no wetness here, up here, and that's normal, but there is also no wetness near the water surface. Now, if we take a look at an example, this one here, first of all, you see how much more perceivable the falling water is here. And also you see how the stones near the water are actually wet. There is this gradient. They are first of all darker, and then they are also more reflective. And the same gradient you need to achieve also on your material, on your wall material and all the other materials that are near the water. You can do this with V-Ray distance map very easily. Also, I find the water surface to be too bumpy or too ripply, let's call it like this. In situations like this, the main ripple should be caused by the waterfall, and then it should start spreading towards the edges and becoming more and more flat until it disappears. But yeah, here we have too much ripple, so I'll reduce them if I were you. Also, the stone wall material simply doesn't look good. This is another example similar to those stones here that looks like some game texture from the 2000s. You just takes away a lot of realism, and you just need a better texture there. You see even here in the Cosmos library there is something like this which looks way more better, way more authentic. Or check Polygon, Quixel or something like this, but you need a better texture here. Also, the walkway material on itself, it looks quite nice, but absolutely doesn't react, let's say, to the areas with the edges, with those stones around the edges, what you can do here is use some V-Ray dirt map and maybe make the areas around the stones here darker or discolored or something like this. This is usually the area where in real life dust and dirt settles, and so they look a bit different than the main pathway areas where a lot of people walk around. And also, talking about colors, the saturation of some of the plants, especially the pink ones here, is way too high. So I suggest reducing the saturation and also tuning up your reds to fit better each other. I think, even though I think that once you desaturate the pinks here, it will be okay. Next, we have another difficult topic with this project, and this is the lighting and post-production. So the images are just too dark and too saturated. The sky is too saturated. The darks are way too intense. I will show you something here. So no, not this one, not this one. So this is your shot, and I took it over in Photoshop and tried to rework it a bit and made something like this, which I think looks more believable and more realistic. You see how desaturated the sky is, how the darks aren't that dark anymore. So yeah, there is a lot of work needed to get these images to look more realistic. I gotta admit that you chose a very difficult lighting to work with. I know this is Algeria, I know this, it gets pretty hot there, and it's also there is a lot of sun as well. I absolutely understand this, but at the same time, when you have this high sun at noon, then it becomes very difficult to work with it, because you have one of two following situations. You either have very dark black shadows, more or less, or you have overexposure on the bright areas. So to balance this out is really difficult. So what I suggest in your situation is to maybe go for an overcast illumination. As you see, this is again another example from Algeria. So this is something that happens in Algeria as well. From time to time it rains, it's cloudy, it's overcast. So, and as you can see, especially when it comes to showing off landscape design, it looks amazing with this type of lighting. So maybe consider this one, or alternatively maybe something like early morning or late afternoon sun, where the light intensity isn't as strong anymore. We'll have those long shadows and the soft lighting in general. This is another park in Algeria, so you see something like this is also very authentic for your area, and I think it is closer to what I made out of the image than what you depicted here. And as for the framing, if we go through the images one by one, first one, the fountain view, it's obviously very informative shot, but the two structures that the whole project here is about have been cut off. The small pond has been cut off down here and the big one up here. So definitely I think you should extend the cropping downwards and upwards and also to the sides until the big pond fits as a whole right in. Next, we have this central perspective, which has some nice symmetry to it, in my opinion. If I were you, I would try to get some dark shadows here in the foreground, because what you want your viewer to see is this situation right here instead of, the foreground here. And the last shot, it's this angled view, which feels kind of natural as a shot, but it also looks kind of random, to be honest. So I think you can find a better framing here following the general photographic rules of composition. And with this, let's conclude it. Very interesting project, Hamza. For improvement, use high quality assets and textures. You can be the best artist out there. If your assets and textures don't have believable high quality to them, then your images just cannot become very realistic. And another suggestion, gladly use photo references, because this will definitely help you with topics such as exposure, saturation, colors, and so on. I already showed you 2 examples here, so maybe follow one of them and try to rework this a bit so that you can add a really nice looking and very interesting project to your portfolio. Okay, let's move on. I see Will joined us. He says, hi Theo, trying to make time to do some personal visual with the community. Love it. Keep up the amazing content. Yeah, man. Yeah, I love it too, to be honest. Okay, let's continue with Ali. Okay, so Ali shares a project visualization project with us, which is very interesting in my opinion. Let's hear what he has to say. Project rendering. Hello guys, it's done in 3ds Max and Corona 10. I hope you like my new work. Nice description, similar to the others. I'm missing the info if this is commercial work or a personal one. I saw you in the comments, so you can gladly share this info now and in future just add it to your description. And of course, given that we are an educational community, we're a campus, you're always more than invited and free to just share a bit more info about the project. Why did you decide to put this chair into this situation and not in a different one? Things like that. Regarding the images themselves and their presentation here, I really like it. I like the varied angles, the consistent looks of those shots, so good work with that. Now let's dive further in and take a closer look. General impression, I think that it's clearly recognizable what this photo shoot is about, and I think that in the end, after going through all three project shots, the chair is actually properly introduced to the viewer, so I think the main goal is definitely fulfilled here. Now let's make a quick review of everything that we see here. So first of all, the scene design. I like it. I really think that it fits the purpose of this photo shooting. It's not distracting. It's kind of secondary to the chair, which in this case is a right approach because we don't want to see this apartment. We want to see the chair in a believable surrounding. The modeling also seems fine. There is enough detail here for the scene to look convincing without being over the top. Only maybe the modeling on the window can profit from some further detailing here for more authenticity and realism. Materials also look pretty good both on the surroundings and the chair itself. As you can see here, the color palette definitely fits the objects. The object makes it stick out. Not sure about this bold red, however. I mean, it's a bit distracting. However, if this is some, let's say, corporate identity color of the manufacturer of this chair, implementing it like this is actually a very wise and smart move on your side. So I don't know everything around the project, but if this is the case, then it's great. If not, maybe this color could be a bit less saturated. Lighting wise, I think that the lighting does the job here. It doesn't really necessarily point at that chair. You know, you could have had some sunlight that leads the viewer's eye towards the chair or something like that. Instead, you went with this neutral, soft, overcast lighting, which definitely properly illuminates the chair and makes this contrast between the dark chair and the white background be possible and work. So I would say that's on the good side. The depth of field, no, is it something else? No, we could just start talking about the framings. Starting with this first shot, I would call it a situational shot. The framing of it feels pretty natural to me. Like on the one hand, it's like a nicely composed shot. At the same time, it could be something that somebody randomly took with their phone, which I think is a very great balance. The depth of field here looks also pretty nice. You see how blurry this wall in the foreground is, and the focus definitely is on the chair, making it the main actor in this scene, and that's the right thing. Generally, the atmosphere I find it to be quite pleasant. It has this low-key intellectual vibe to it with all those books about designers. I think that's enough for the first shot. Let's move on to the second one. And this one is actually really beautifully framed. I like the balanced composition between the chair and the book down here. In this case, this red color is actually very pleasant to add some fire to the scene, some emotion maybe. As for the depth of field, I'm not quite sure about it when it comes to this cane webbing that we have on the backrest of the chair, because I kind of wish that it is more visible, but something like this needs to be tested. Anyway, while the first shot was there to show like the chair in a situation, the second one is more there to show the actual form and design of the chair. And now let's go to the third one, which is the close-up, which is here to show us the materials the chair is made of. So every shot has its own purpose, and I really like this. However, this shot is a bit of a mixed bag. It has some sweet depth of field on it. The wooden material on the chair looks nice. Framing-wise, however, you've done something which is contradictory. On the one hand, you have put a clear focus from the depth of field on this part here so that we clearly see the material, but then you have put the part that you have deliberately put the focus on near the edge, barely fitting into this image. And obviously this contradicts itself, because important parts of the images are seldomly like pushed around the edge, with everything else which is secondary taking the most part of the image. So I think the solution here would be to extend the framing to the right so that this part here, which is your main actor in this case, has enough room to breathe, as we like to call it in this group, and maybe cut off the book up here, because in this case I find it distracting. So something like this. If we compare the two shots, you will see I just shifted the whole framing downwards so that we see a bit more from the chair. You see how the part that we can now concentrate on has this space to the right so that we can see it without it barely fitting in the scene. And the book, which was kind of distracting to me, is now gone, and I personally prefer this framing. You in the comments can gladly let me know what you think about this. And with this, we are through with Ali's work, and we can move over to Monique. I saw you in the comments in the beginning, Monique. I hope you're still there, because now we'll take a look at your work. You're a new member here. This is your first post in the group, so you're welcome here. We're happy that you have become a part of the group, and that Viz Academy invited you over, and we're looking forward to your future projects as well. Let's see what you have to say about the project. First exterior and interior using 3ds Max and Corona Renderer. Learn everything from Viz Academy UK. Hope to get better and better at it. Any tips and feedbacks are welcome. I asked you about the references, if these projects are recreations, because this is how you mostly learn in the Viz Academy, or at least this is how it used to be. And you immediately added the exterior and interior references here so that we can compare with them. That was great. Say hello, thank you for the welcome. Hi, glad to have you here. Let's take a look. So you have great description on your side. Again, the thing that was missing was the external references for exterior and interior, and you added them. So please, in future, just add them gladly also with a link, so that people who are interested don't have to go look for them. But if you add the names the way that you did here, I think that's also enough, because they're then very easy and quickly to find. And as it is a learning community, you heard that already, you're always free to share a bit more on what was difficult for you, what was challenging, what was cool. Did you maybe find a workaround around an issue that you had, or something like this? Everything that you share is something that others can profit from. And you're in the comments, so if there is something like that, you're invited to do it now. As for the image presentation, both shots look pretty cool. However, it's a bit confusing, because in the beginning I was like, wow, look at this house. It must have some kind of a basement floor or something for this interior, which is obviously a 2-story one to fit in a small cabin like this. But yeah, these are just two completely different projects. So maybe in future, be a bit more specific about it in your description, or just upload this as two separate projects. But yeah, let's take a closer look. First, this is, we'll start with the exterior, or let's say generally speaking, the general impression is about very nice looking images that you have created there, especially given the fact that these are the very first images that you do with the new software combination that you learned. So seen like that, that's really, really good stuff here. Now we'll start with the exterior. Let's take a look at the reference. Oh, I used to have it open. Yeah, it's still visible. Okay. So this is the exterior, the original reference, and this is your version of it. So you simplified the scene a bit, you alter it a bit, but in my opinion, it still works. It's about the house mostly, so that's great. Let's talk about the modeling. Thinking about the modeling, I see a lot of good detail on the house. Also a nicely modeled environment, and it's great to see a furnished interior, even though it's just like a pillow and a backrest on a sofa that we see. It always gives a bit of a lived-in feeling. If you want to enhance it even further, you have those shelves here. Put something on them. If you take a look at the original reference, you see that there are some books, some stuff put on the shelves. So gladly do so in your scene as well. For this, again, you have the Cosmos library, so you don't even have to buy a set. You can just put some books or something like this in there. Let's take a look at 3D models and say books. And you see how many books you have at your disposal. Just take them, put them inside, and you're set. Okay, back to the house. Material-wise, I also like the materials, especially the wooden cladding. It's really great, really fits this type of house. The color scheme works as well. There is something strange about this stone wall material. It looks like a displacement issue. Maybe you have used a UVW randomizer here in order to avoid repetitions on the stones of this wall, and especially if you have used the randomize each tile option, but you didn't have it on all the maps, something like this can easily happen. I don't know what it is. You're in the comments. Gladly let me know if this could be a displacement issue or a UV randomizer issue. But in case you have used the UVW randomizer, make sure that you have the UVW randomizer map not only on your diffuse map, but also on your reflection, a bump, and the displacement as well, the glossiness too. And if you have it on your bump map, make sure it is not after the bump map converter, the normal map converter, but before it. This is something people need to know. Apart from that, I think everything material-wise looks pretty nice. Let's take a look at the scattering. The scattering looks quite fine, especially here in the grass area. It's very authentic with that nice variety of different grasses and flowers, weeds, stones. It's really cool. Now, the grasses on this stone wall here are clipping through the wall, which doesn't look that great. So you definitely need to play around with the edge trimming values. I had prepared something here for you. Oh, here, we're still at it. So I will share this. It's from the Chaos support, how to use Chaos Scatter with Corona for 3ds Max advanced features, because I assume that you have used the Chaos Scatter and not Forest Pack, but whatever it is, you need to play around again with these edge trimming values so that something like what you had there with those grasses clipping through the wall doesn't happen. You said the wall was from Polyhaven Texture. Well, just check the displacement settings on it then. And back to this article here, this edge trimming is very nicely explained in detail. So go through it and you'll know how to properly control something like this. Now, regarding the trees, the scattering on the trees, it is okay. We see no repetitions, but we also don't see much variety as well. If you take a look at the original, you see that we have maybe 2 or 3 types of trees, some with more leaves, some with less. Also different density. In your case, it looks like it's all the same tree, just rotated around, scaled up and down, which I think is a bit of a pity. And generally speaking, your tree model is not the best. Partially, the same thing goes for the grass. So if you plan to go into exterior visualization, I really recommend investing in some, I don't know, glow plans, max tree, 3D sky, whatever you want, but invest in some really proper assets when it comes to trees, grasses, and so on. This always pays off. Also, again, check the Cosmos library because there are also some really great trees there. Maybe this is one of them, but not everything in the Cosmos library is very high quality. This needs to be said. Okay, lighting wise, I think that lighting definitely does the job. It's pleasant and soft. Personally, I miss a bit of this slightly warmish, golden, subtle sunset feeling that we have in the original. I think it would be great to have it, but again, yours works. And atmosphere wise, now this is a subjective topic, but let me tell you what I think about it. I enjoy your version, your rendition of this scene, because in the beginning we stated you changed the scene a bit. You did good. However, your scene has a bit of a different storytelling compared to the original. If we take a look at the original, you will see that there is this second house here. I don't know if this is like the main house and this is just some kind of a cabin for somebody to work in, or if this is the neighbor. Also, we have way less dense trees around, and the whole thing looks like it's some kind of a suburban, or let's say less urban area, but still it's like a small city or a village. There are probably more houses around. We see an electric cable probably here. So this is more of an urban situation, let's call it like this. Whereas what you've depicted here is more of a solitude thing, which is like this lone cabin in the woods, surrounded by trees, by pure wild nature. So just so you know, your surroundings, it's not only the object that you visualize, it's also its surroundings. So if you tried to have to give the viewer the same impression as the original, you didn't really succeed, because let's say on this one, it's just a different setting. It's just a bit of a different mood. It's not bad. Just seen on its own, it's a very pleasant cabin in the woods. But if you compare to the original, if your goal was to have something similar to it, you kind of changed the atmosphere. Now let's move to the interior scene, which let me just go to the next scene, and this is the original one. So yeah, I gotta accept the cookies, and both images, both shots are very, very similar, as we can tell here. Modeling looks great. The assets that you have used are also very pretty. Partially, I maybe even like them more than on the original. What they had here, there are some kind of candle holders or something like this. I think they deliberately used them to add some color to the composition. You, on your side, decided to go with something which more fits the color scheme, and it fits greatly, very harmoniously, in my opinion. So yeah, it's pretty cool. The only thing that is missing modeling wise is probably the railing on the curtains. It seems like your curtains are just levitating, while in the original there is some railing. It's not very visible, but it actually is there. It says only the curtains don't have curtain rods where it rests on hangs. It's I don't know. I'm also not sure how they made it, but there is some way of implementing curtains like that. I don't know how it is, to be honest. Materials look generally very good, very similar color scheme to the original, and there is one exception, and it's the concrete. The concrete itself generally looks nice. The optic is similar to the original concrete. However, it is kind of too slick. It needs more roughness like the original has it. Take a look at this. There is some roughness here, and something like this you cannot achieve with a bump map. Obviously, something like this is achieved with the help of a displacement map. So you gotta use it. Lighting wise, and a lighting, let this be said, is a very important aspect of this project. It's really good. I absolutely love the gobble effect on the floor here. It's just lovely. It's so lively. It's just a pleasure to look at. And generally the lighting is very pleasant, both in the original and in your recreation. However, there is some issue in the upper areas of your shot where we have some certain overexposure and also bleaching on the material. And as a result of this, you are losing detail on the concrete. And there are two solutions for this. The first one, once you add a bit more displacement to your concrete material, partially this will get better. And the second thing is this can easily be fixed in post-production by using the material ID channel in order to be able to only, let's say, select those areas here. I tried out something like this. So if this is your original scene, with a bit of post-production, I was able to bring back some of the washed out color of the concrete, which I think is closer to the original than your version, which is again has a bit of an issue with overexposure here. But apart from that, it's a really great start on your side. I'm not really surprised. I actually expect this from Viz Academy. I also had great start because of them. But nevertheless, you put a lot of effort into those images and it really pays off with some really good outcomes. And I'm really looking forward to your future works in this group. Please keep sharing them with us. Amit says, you can see the railing in the corner, just zoom in the original image. Okay. I don't know if I can zoom. Okay, maybe. Yeah, doesn't really work. But yeah, you can see it here. It's some kind of a railing, but I don't see, those big holes in the curtains. Or maybe this is a different type of using a railing. I'm not much into curtains, to be honest. We don't have any at home. Okay, enough. Now time to go over to Sepea's work. Sepea, actually, he's a Rhino user. I'm always happy, as a former Rhino user myself, I'm always happy to see works done in Rhino, especially if they're good. And Sepea actually shared two projects. This very nice looking bathroom with some really cool shots to it. However, our friend Ahmad, that we've been just talking to in the comments right now, was there and gave him a lot of feedback, which he not only did for Sepea, but also for lots of others. At some point, he commented to almost every project that has been shared in the group. And huge shout out to you, Ahmad. I did it in the live show last week, in the Chaos Campus live show. I'll do it once again. It's great to have people like you, and you're very appreciated, because I know it takes time, it takes effort to do this. And as far as I know, you also have a kid, so you're also a dad, you have other stuff, personal stuff on the side. So I know that there is your daughter. I think you're always working on those projects together, if I remember correctly. So I know you have your commercial work, you have your private life, you have your kid, but you still find the time for this, and I greatly appreciate it, and I hope everybody else does too. And same goes for everybody else who gives some of their time to help others, to provide some constructive criticism, because we all profit from this. And as I have you in the comments, gladly tell me, or tell the others as well, honestly, do you also get something out of it? Is it just something that you do for the others and you just put that time and effort, or by providing that feedback you actually also learn things for yourself, that, let's say, if it's mistakes you don't repeat, and if it's something good you remember for the future? Please be honest about it. If this is not the case, then it just is not the case. With me it definitely was, and it still is, because I still comment a lot, but I'm really curious to hear how it is for you. Say thanks, Theo, and thanks to all for motivating me and helping me give feedbacks and lots of learning. Yeah, it's a pleasure. This is what the group is for. Yeah, anyway, while you're typing, I really hope to hear, yeah, you already typed it. I learned a lot from the feedbacks and have started applying them in my work. Well, this is of course what I hoped to hear, but I'm glad that this is what actually is the case with you, and I hope that this motivates everybody else, because obviously one person cannot be there and do all the feedback giving for the whole group. It can neither be me nor Amit. It's just a lot of time and effort put into this if you have to do it for everybody. However, we're a big community. Soon we will have almost 4,000 group members. So if everybody would just, share some of their opinions, you don't have to be a pro artist to do this. You see your work, you have some thoughts about it, just lay them down. As long as it is meant in a constructive way, as long as you want to help somebody else, it's always great. It doesn't matter if you just opened 3ds Max for the first time or if you're an artist of 30 years. Just lay down your thoughts and opinions for the others to hear, because this helps the artists grow. And it doesn't only help this one certain artist like Ahmad did here with Sepea, because I also read through it and some of his points were maybe new to me as well. So it is also useful to me and to everybody else who reads this. Now, back to Sepea. So he shared this project. It's pretty good. Also, Ahmad was there for him. So I'll gladly take a look at a different project that Sepea shared. It's this, I don't know, small living, whatever. Let's see what he writes about it. Reception and kitchen design according to the color palette and material from dark to light, using specific design teams to live in the space. It's done in Rhino and V-Ray with no post-production and no AI. Saying that there is no AI in the meantime is actually something that needs to be almost obligatory. We don't have anything against AI in this group. If you used AI to enhance your image, just please point it out in your description, not only for the sake of fairness, but also for others to maybe read it and learn something out of it. Now, when it comes to creating images, like fully generating images with the help of AI, we don't really need this because nobody really profits from this. You can, of course, share a post about it and be like, yeah, I wanted to create exactly this and I used this AI software and it gave me exactly what I wanted. I think it has improved a lot. So more or less make something like an article. Then I think it would be something that will be useful to the others. But just sharing your mid-journey prompted images doesn't really make a big point in this group. As for this no post-production comment, I'm not sure. I often see artists say something like this, and I'm not sure why this is a thing, to be honest. Because for the 12 years that I've been doing this, I don't think that I have delivered one single image that I didn't use at least some post-production on. Now, generally speaking, I think there are two types of artists. There are the artists who just make a rough model or a rough rendering of, let's say, their main building in 3D, render it out because they want to go do their magic in the post-production with matte painting and so on. And then there are the artists like myself and probably Sepea here who like to do like 99% of the work within the video frame buffer, within the rendering software and engine, and then have an almost ready-made image when the image is finally ready. However, I still think that you can always improve your images even a bit, the saturations, the contrasts, the brightness, the midtones and stuff like this. So if I were you, I would always try to take my image over at Camera Raw, Photoshop, Lightroom or whatever software you use and see if I cannot update it even more, make it even tiny bit better. So personally, I don't see this no post-production as a flex, because why not? As for the rest of the description, it's a good description. You've put effort into it. It's a bit cryptic because using specific design teams to live in the space is kind of generic. I don't really understand what you mean by that. And according to the color palette, obviously it pops up the question, which color palette? So maybe you can be a bit more specific on those topics because it sounds really interesting, honestly. As for the image presentation, I find it to be quite good because we have nicely varied angles and good visual consistency throughout them. So now we will dive into those images and take a look at them one by one. I will just take a moment to read what Ahmad wrote. Now with my daughter, now with my son, is also grown up and have his projects as well. It's a lot going on, but still I take time to see our group friends work and give feedbacks to them, helping them, and in return learn myself as well. That's great, and I really know what you're talking about because I've been doing this since 2019, 2020, so for a while now, and I know that it pays off for one too. It's not only like an act of altruism where you just do this for the others and you yourself don't get anything out of it. I myself managed to learn a lot, and I know that I have avoided tons of mistakes. Every time when I do some cropping and I think back to some projects that I criticized the cropping of, and I don't do the same mistakes anymore. So my work has actually improved since I started providing feedback to others, because this is just another way of learning, let's be honest. Okay, let's review Seper's project, starting with the design. I think it's pretty pleasant design. We have this nice small studio apartment, looks functional, looks nice. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the decoration of this hi-fi area, let's call it like this, because we have those assets here that look kind of dark, massive, and don't fit the rest of the design that well, in my opinion. Also, with so many electronics, you definitely need electric cables. So the lamps need them, the subwoofer, the speaker needs them, the PS5 also needs some kind of a cable to the TV. So maybe reduce, maybe use some books, maybe a small vase, some decorative element, something like this. Modeling wise, actually everything seems quite solid, makes sense. There is a good amount of detail in this work. What I'm missing is some kind of a transition between the wall and the floor. Usually there is some kind of a baseboard, or what's been done in the recent years is a kind of a grout. So the wall finishes and there is a small gap, and then you see the floor disappearing under the wall, something like this. But a transition like this is pretty seldom, at least here in Europe. The assets that you have used also look pretty sweet. I really like this Batman plushie on the sofa. It's a set that I would also gladly have myself. Materials I like as well. You have a pleasant color scheme. You mentioned the color scheme in the description, but then you didn't elaborate more on it. But the way it is, it's quite pleasant. Personally, I find the floor and especially the wood on the ceiling to be too dark and too saturated. They make for this very strong contrast, in my opinion, which is kind of contradictory to the inviting and otherwise very suiting color scheme of the rest of the apartment. Also, the wooden slats on the ceiling have some repetitive mapping to them, but this is something that you can easily fix with just some UVW randomization on the material setup. The lighting, what I like is this diffuse artificial lighting. You have it on the kitchen counter, you have it partially on the false ceiling, or here underneath the sideboard, on the shelves and the workplace. What was it here? It's looking really nice, and generally your artificial lighting is very pleasant to look at. The natural lighting, on the other hand, we see it here. It is there, but it's sufficient, but it doesn't really add atmosphere. So my suggestion here is to maybe experiment a bit more with lighting. There is stuff like sunrise, sunset, just sunlight coming through the windows. So gladly experiment with it a bit more. What I definitely can recommend to you is the Arvis Masterclass with Nikos and Chaos, which happens once a month. I attended this course, the Creative Lighting Masterclass by Nikos, years ago, so I missed the first two lessons. On the third one that happened this month, I attended this one, and even though I knew some of the stuff that Nikos showed there, it was still so inspiring when it comes to the topic of lighting, so I definitely recommend this to you, Seper. And now let's talk about the framing. I think this is the first shot anyway, so let's start with it. We see we're in the living room looking towards the kitchen. It's kind of a bit of a cramped and full shot, but still pretty harmoniously framed. To get rid of this slightly cramped feeling, I recommend extending the horizontal cropping, I'm sorry. So yeah, something more like this, because you see in your version, you cut off a part of the table, the backrest here, and you see in this version, there is more room to breathe around the objects, and I think it definitely feels better and less cramped this way. Okay, let's continue to the second one. We have a nice shot of the dining table. I really like it. We have some good depth of field here, good focus, and the general shot is nicely balanced and framed. It will definitely look better if you had something like a curtain or maybe some blinds on the window, because the window itself is kind of a too technical element and doesn't really fit the elegance of all of the tableware, the lamps here. Next we have the kitchen shot. This is a very technical shot. Like, this is something that you give to your client, and they print it out, and once the kitchen builders come, they can hang it in the empty kitchen and show how the kitchen is supposed to look like. And seen like this, I would say extend this shot to the left so that you can showcase the whole kitchen area, including the fridge. Next we have this TV shot seen from the dining area. I really like the depth of field, the focus here. Only thing you may want to do is maybe turn on the TV, put something which in terms of color fits the rest here, and then it will be really, really beautiful. Probably one of the best shots of this project. Next we have the sitting area, and this is another example of a cramped shot. You see what we are looking at, what you're showing to your viewer here is the sitting area, the sofa, the beanbag, and those tables. And you see how those things barely fit. So again, try to extend the cropping, give it a bit more space so that people don't have this cramped feeling while looking at the images. Sorry about this. Generative Fill really shed the bed with this one, but it's not so important. It's just about the cropping and framing and not so much about this chair here, right? Next we have this TV area. Here the composition works. Cutting off the sitting area in this case makes sense because the shot isn't about it, it's about this composition here, and I think it works. There is not a lot of empty foreground as well, but if there was, you can just put the beanbag a bit more to the right and then it got you covered. As for this situation here, speaking from a purely technical aspect and functional one, I think that this one isn't that convenient. I think that the TV is placed way too high. So once you're sitting on the sofa, you kind of have to look up a bit, which isn't very comfortable, to be honest. So if I were you, I will remove those assets down here. I will pull this low board, make it a bit thicker and pull it down, and also pull the TV down as well. I think it will look a bit better. And if you need something at that height, you can just put a small shelf up there with some deco elements on it. Next we have the work area. This is a nice shot. I really enjoy how you established a visual relation between the different zones in the apartment, because we see the sitting area in the foreground. However, you blurred it out with depth of field so that it's not important to the viewer. It's only there enough to cover the empty space on the floor and to show where the viewer is currently situated. But what we focus on is definitely this wall art and a nice workplace here, the wardrobe. So this one is a really good one. And there is like the opposite version of it. This one isn't that great because, as you see, again, elements barely fit or have been cut off. So either concentrate just on a fragment like this nice corner with the plants here, or show the whole area as you did on the previous shot, like here, and maybe leave a bit more space here to the side. And now we're back at the white model and the clay model. It's great that you have it. Including this is always cool because we see the difference between the lighting setup and the actual textured model. you also included it as a very last image, so once people have gone through all the images and they end up back by the first one, they still have those two images next to each other. This is pretty smart. However, make sure that you have the very same angle, because currently the angle jumps a bit to the side, which isn't that great. But all in all, a good project. Super. If it's a commercial one, even better. Your compositions definitely have improved, especially looking at a shot like this one. It's really fine. Still, I suggest that you do some further reading on the topic of framing and composition, and again, experiment more with more atmospheric lighting to bring more emotion into your visualizations. And with this, we'll end at the very last project. This is our dessert for today, because it's something really interesting, something like maybe I would call it a study, because what Navid did here is he modeled and textured this wooden house. Maybe it's a ready-made set, I don't know. And then he started placing it in different situations. So here in this dark, dry surroundings, here in these very lush green surroundings, then and I don't know, this is some kind of a shore at a beach or something, and then in this Arctic or very snowy situation at least. And it's really interesting because while doing this, Navid was experimenting with lighting, mood, composition, storytelling, and it's really, really interesting. So what we'll do now is we'll take a look at the single situations and shots one by one, starting with this one, which is, I would call it the dark surroundings scene in day mode, because there is also an evening mode. And what we have here is something really great, so please look carefully. We have not one, but 4 different types of contrasts here. The obvious one is the contrast between bright and dark. Next, we have the contrast between desaturated, almost monochrome landscape and this very fresh looking saturated wood on the house. Next, third, we have the contrast between this, let's call it organic chaos of the surroundings and the tidy, neat order of the house. And fourth, we have the contrast between those delicate small twigs and the massive appearance of the house. So we have 4 different contrasts, and this is really masterfully put off. Also, in this case, when it comes to the lighting, the lack of direct illumination, sunlight, for example, makes those contrasts that we just talked about way more perceivable. Why? Because if we had, let's say, direct sunlight, shadows, this would be distracting, and some of those contrasts we won't be able to see anymore. So in this case, an overcast, neutral, soft lighting like this is the right decision. Now let's take a look at the evening shot. What I really like here is the huge difference in the 2 moods, because I often see artists who share a work that has, let's say, the day shot has been done sometime at the afternoon, and then there is an evening shot which is maybe 1 or 2 hours later. And the difference between those 2 shots is so marginal that you don't actually see it. It just looks like missing consistency between the 2 shots. Whereas here, what we have is like this huge difference between the day and the evening shot. Also, we have some really cool volumetrics in the back. The whole thing is very atmospheric, and it's really cool to see how it's shining from the inside out, and you see the highlighting some of the silhouettes of the immediate surroundings. Really beautiful effect. However, this also leads to a total shift regarding the visual message of the image. While this day shot is very much about the building and the contrast between the building and its surroundings, the second shot, because we have this light concentrate on the inside of the building, the second shot has a clear emphasis on the interior. The problem here, the interior is empty. So if the interior had some stuff in it, then it would be great, but the way it is now, it's a bit of a pity that the interior is empty. Now let's move on to the second placement of this house. Now we have the same house. However, in this case, the house is a bit of a, let's call it a prop, because what we are supposed to look at here is the lush greenery in the foreground, and the house is there for the contrast. It's a bit similar to this one project that you know of mine, the 10 years outdoor visual studio project. I was having so much greenery here that I decided to counter it, to make this greenery actually perceivable and not just be like something like a sea of green that at some point you don't perceive anymore. I decided to place this house back here so that we have the contrast between the elements, and because of this contrast we actually can see this greenery and take it as it is, instead of it just being a background, a green background. So, and I think that what Navid is doing here is pretty much the same, and it definitely works, because obviously the emphasis is on the beautiful lush greenery, but the house is there to balance it out. Also, obviously the plants look great, really good assets with wonderful leaf translucency, which in combination with the lighting just looks great, very realistic, very authentic. The only issue that I have here is that the greens, especially the grass and the greens down here, are kind of too similar. Like somebody went there and spray painted them with the same green. So maybe try to add a bit of variation in the nuances of the greens here. And also, if this is a, let's say, pathway to the house, maybe add some stepstones there. This will definitely add to the storytelling. Or maybe make the grass look trampled, so that again it will add to the storytelling by showing that this is actually a path that people can take to reach the house. The next thing is the beach version, which is another great rendition, maybe my favorite one here, because similar to the first one, we have again some really cool contrasts. First of all, between the desaturated surroundings and the colorful, let's call it colorful house. Then we have the dark and bright, and then we have the soft. You see how soft this sand dune is, and then this very strict, let's say, almost brutal form of the house. Also, what I very much enjoy here is the visual guidance. We have this sand clearance here, which leads the viewer's eye towards the main area that we're supposed to look at, which is the brightly lit area inside of the house. We also have a certain clearance here in the crowns of the trees. So we have another, let's say, line which is pointing down to this main actor of the scene. And it's generally just a beautiful composition. The materials and the assets look great as well. There is only one exception here. I don't know how it happened. While the tree to the left looks photorealistic, this one looks like, I don't know, like it's some kind of a proxy that didn't render properly or something, but you definitely need to check it out. And then with this we land by the last version, which is the winter scene. To put it in Mir's words, this is a strong image, definitely is. It has great framing and composition. It has some really atmospheric lighting and effects. Some storytelling as well, with a snowman here. However, there are some issues here. The snow in the foreground looks really low poly for some reason. Also, something about the house perspective feels off to me. Maybe you just place the house in a post-production or something like this. Also, the house is kind of too clean. Like you see, everything is covered in snow, but the house is absolutely spotless, even the roof areas. So maybe I think this was more of a study with an emphasis on the general impression of a shot rather than like photorealism or everything making sense. Nevertheless, it's a great study. It's truly inspiring, so please keep doing and sharing this, and maybe at some point you can make a tutorial for everybody to see. This will be greatly appreciated, I'm sure. And with this, I think we reached the end of our today's 24th episode of Keeping It Realistic. In the beginning we had some issues, but we still made it under 2 hours. So It was a pleasure hanging out with all of you, the talks that we had. I hope this feedback and the whole news in the beginning and the whole show was just pleasant and useful to you as well. I hope you have a good rest of the week. I hope to see you again in 2 weeks, where again I will tell you a bit more about the Berlin event that I will now go prepare for. Have a good rest of the week. Stay safe, be healthy. Rock on, and ciao my friends. It was a pleasure as always. Bye.